Hello, Randy Kavanaugh from the Armor Garage here, and welcome to another episode of Pet vs. Print, the series where we build two identical props, one using pepakura and one using 3D printing. In today's episode, we're going to go over cutting out the paper parts and getting them ready to trace out on the EVA foam. On the 3D printing side of things, we're going to go over cleaning up those first couple of 3D printed parts that we have completed. Okay, let's dive right into it. Okay, before we start cutting out the parts, what I like to do is label each part with a number corresponding to the page and a letter to designate where it is on the page. What I do is I start with the top left piece on page 1 and I just work my way left to right, top to bottom, A, B, C, D, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So page 1A, 1B, 1C. Like, again, it doesn't really have to be perfect. It's just so that you have some idea of context for where those parts are for when you're kind of hunting them down, when you're putting the thing together. G. This one. I'm not going to be able to see this one very well. It's alright. I think I'll be able to figure out what part that is. H, 1J, 1K, 1L, 1M, 1N. Wow, a lot of parts on this page. 1P. Don't often get that high in the letters. Okay. If a piece goes over multiple pages, I tend to just use the first page it touches. And this whole like numbering, lettering system, I'd like to eventually have that function automatically within ArmorSmith, but for now it's a manual process. Okay, I'm just going to go through and finish these off. So this is still that 1L. I'm just going to put that on there for identifying. Call this 2A, 2B, and that's still 1L, 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D. This is probably the same piece, but we'll just do this for now. Fix that up after. Okay, and then page 4 corresponds back with page 1. So this one was 10. This one was 1P. This one will be 4A, 4B, 4C, 4D. Nothing crossed over from there, except for this one, which is 4A, 4C, 4C, 4D, and then 5A, 5B, okay, and then this one, well, okay, really, I'll just call it 6A, but it's all one big piece. Okay. Okay, now that we have the pieces labeled, we can start cutting them out. You can kind of use either a pair of scissors or an X-Acto. I used to be all about the X-Acto, but I find with the foam templates that it can be just as quick with a pair of scissors, and I don't know, find it a little bit easier. Maybe a little bit more relaxed or something, but yeah. So you can see along the borders here that what Armorsmith does is it draws a dotted line from corner to corner so that you can distinctly see where the page boundaries are, and then if a part goes over, you know exactly where it goes over. If you're using Pepakura Designer, in order to get the same effect, what you'll want to do is turn on alignment marks in your print options, and then you can use a ruler. But essentially what it'll do is it'll generate like a crosshairs in all your corners. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to have to manually go in and line up your crosshairs and then draw a line across so you get the same effect. Again, with Armorsmith, I've just been trying to add as many convenience tools as I can just to make building easier. For pieces that span multiple pages, what I like to do is just leave a little extra at the bottom on the right-hand side and the bottom side. I just do this for consistency so that when I'm cutting out parts, I know that I can like quickly cut off the top margins on the top and on the left-hand side. So, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start cutting out all these parts. Okay, now that we've got all the parts cut out, what we're going to do is tape all the pieces together that span multiple pages. And the easiest way to do this is you just keep the program open so that you can match up where the parts go, and we'll just work through taping all these together. And I'm just going to move to the side any pieces that don't span multiple pages so that they're just not in the way. Okay, so we got this first one here, which is 4C, and we're just going to get this all taped together. So I just like to use a clear tape, like Scotch tape, just so that you can see exactly where you're joining them together. So, just kind of put it on there. Tape on. Line it up. And just wrap the tape around it like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. There we go, so that part's done. Next up we got 4D here. Once you get going, it really helps having these parts labeled so that you can quickly find them. It just makes the process go a lot smoother. Sometimes you might find you have a part that's got a little bit of overlap there from the leftover on the other page, and just trim that up. piece done. Okay, that should be everything. So now we're ready to start tracing that out on the foam. Okay, that's about all the time we have left in this episode for working on the foam build. So let's now move on to the 3D print. We're going to start cleaning up the parts that we've printed out so far. Alright, so we have our first two 3D printed parts here. The first thing we're going to want to do is remove all those supports. As you can see, the print came out pretty good. There's a few areas that need to be filled in. My printer isn't perfect, but overall I'm really happy with the result. So I'll just show you here exactly what the supports look like. So you can see these slats essentially. They need to be removed, and the easiest way to do that is take a pair of pliers and just kind of snap those off. And you just go through and you work each one, and they pop off pretty easy. A little bit of force, not too bad. I really love the mesh mixer supports. If you use the supports that are just automatically generated with most of the common slicers, it's just kind of like a zigzag pattern that isn't very strong. It uses way too much filament, and they can be a real pain to remove. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to remove all these pieces. Probably a little denser than I needed to go in here, but better to have too much than too little. So here's what we've got printed out so far on the 3D print. I've just taped the parts together for now. I usually like to use Crazy Glue Gel for the final gluing together of the parts. I removed most of the supports. Some of them were stuck on there really well. I'm going to take a look at the density settings to see if I can thin those out a little bit. Ran into a little bit of a problem on the print on the forehead. But I just kind of dremeled out to try and even it back up, and we'll clean this up with a little bit of filler afterwards, and you won't even notice that was there. I hate throwing out any 3D prints just because it's such a waste of the plastic, so I always try to work with what I've printed out. So yeah, that's about as far as we're going to get on the 3D print for this episode. Again, it takes a while to print out all the parts, so hopefully by next week we'll have all the parts printed out. Alright, so that's it for this episode. For the pepakura foam build, we're sitting at around 1.5 hours of work this episode. And as far as cost, we've only spent $20, and that was for the EVA foam. For the 3D printing though, we're sitting around 35 hours of printing and about 2 hours for the finishing work. As far as cost goes for the 3D printing, we've used up about $20 in filament, so not too far off from the pep build. It may seem like the 3D printing build is jumping ahead, but don't worry, we'll catch up fast with the foam pep build next episode. So remember, if you like this episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button at the end of the video, and if you want to follow some of my other exciting projects, make sure to check out my Facebook page at www.facebook.com/thearmoredgarage. Goodbye!